put a pot on she hair and gone.
Prime Minister, you were at a discourse the other night, which I attended, and you spoke about the challenges facing the African Guyanese community. And for this reason, I brought you on because it is what you were saying is exactly the kind of things that we are facing in our villages. Some of those things you spoke about. And for that reason, I would like you to, if you can discuss it so that those who will listen to this program, because it will be aired on Facebook later because I'm not seeing how to get it live on Facebook at the moment.
Well, on Thursday, I made the point that a key element is for all of us, particularly those who are older folks, to ensure that our young people understand our history so that we can educate our people in the broader sense, give them the knowledge and the information that they can move forward. Without that, they are incapable of developing the strength, moral and spiritual, to compete and to advance with strength into the next era of this country of ours. Particularly now that we have this abundance of wealth, which, if not understood and used, instead of being a blessing, can be a curse. The first step, therefore, is to share knowledge and information so that we have the bunks to agitate for equality and a fair share of the wealth that the Creator has given to us. On Thursday, I attempted to analyze very briefly our history in a country that we boast we're part of 6 races. And I gave some very striking but simple examples. The Africans who were tricked, thanks to the connivance of some of their own people, and this is an important point to make in the context of Guyana and the world of which we are a part. They were tricked, put into slave castles, shipped to the Caribbean and the Americas, and enslaved when they arrived here. Those who recognized that they were not being brought away to be free men and women jumped overboard. And I made the point that their bones are rattling in the bottom of the Atlantic, seeking us to agitate and to do all things possible to vindicate the suffering and the plight of those who made it to the shores of Guyana, Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, and America. And the task is not simple, it's great. Because propaganda has intervened, beliefs have intervened. But with that knowledge, we can agitate for good to ensure that we are truly liberated. When we got freedom in 1834, or if you wish, 1838, it was simply a step. Today, as Bob Marley says, using the words of Marcus Garvey's speech, We now need mental liberation. And that is the task, because no group has made a greater contribution to the civilization of this country than the African slaves, who dug miles of canals, dams with their bare hands, the brutality of the Europeans who beat them to work. No other group has had that suffering. And we need to understand that if you are to vindicate this suffering, we need to work, to study, and to ensure that our young people are prepared for the task ahead and are not tricked, cajoled by people who may not look the same way as the old slave master, the old plantation owner, would have developed the same ideology, the same philosophy. And we see it in our society today, where some who are not the real beneficiaries of the God-given blessings we've got think that they are part of a society where they should control. And there's an oligarchy developing this country today, and we need to resist it, not necessarily by force, but by thinking and developing a sense of pride among our people that we are equal to anyone else. Over the years, we have been made to believe that the Creator, whoever made us unequal. And recently, no less a person than Dr. Jagan said that Afro-Guyanese are at the bottom of the ladder. Some of us were angry with him, but he was right. And we need to examine it brutally, ensure that our young people receive an education. Young fathers and mothers must make a sacrifice so that nothing gets in the way. Prepare them for an age where technology and science is foremost. And remember, in this regard, I made the point on Thursday that no matter what we do, that the 21st century opens the gateway for those who are technically and scientifically prepared for a new age. Those who are prepared to make sacrifices. And the message I left with the young people there, is young parents, particularly young Afro parents, must spare no pains to ensure that their children receive a proper education so that at the next round, they are not the hewers of wood and drawers of water. But that when Exxon and the other people come and they want to technologists, our people must be able to go with the certificates, as we say, the kagaj, say, I've come for a job, and I don't want to go to them for a job as a sweeper and a cleaner, because that is so easy. And for me, that is the first message we need to transmit to our young people. And the people who are managing the affairs of this country. They're very clever, you know. You give them $100,000 here and $100,000 there. So they equip themselves with fancy clothing made in Europe or China and satisfy them for a few days and a few weeks. So we remain at the bottom of the ladder.
On that $100,000, Brother Prime Minister, you know, we in AGDA, well, I'm not speaking on behalf, this is not AGDA program, but I'm a member of AGDA. We've been promoting the idea that, you know, as Afro-Guyanese who coming from a tradition of cooperatives, within the family, we can bring that 100,000 together, 3-4 members of the family and cousins, put it together for an investment so that we can maximize the benefit of it. Because last month we had no idea that we will be, it's not a money that we budgeted for because it's not earned money as such. It's money that come because of being Guyanese, you know, it's your right. But then we need not buy those fancy clothing as some would want us to. We need not buy the fridge or repair, you know, if it's repairs to your home, yes, because that's essential. But we are saying, look, put those monies together and maybe you can buy a small piece of equipment, maybe a concrete mixer, make some blocks. You can buy a weeding machine, a weed whacker, 2-3 of you, and then you can start doing weeding yards. No, so, you know, in your spare time, if you're working somewhere else, if you're not working, well, then it can be an investment for some member of the family who is not working. You can get something for him to use, and then, you know, so we all benefit. He is paid a daily wage, and the money now is there from which we can get dividends to replow into another business or expand the business. What do you think of that?
Well, it is one of the ideas that our modern visionary had. That is how today our country is named the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, even though some people try to change it, but they have to get a majority in parliament to do that. It is important.
But passports is just written Republic of Guyana.
Yeah, but as I said on Thursday to response, beyond that, we need to focus heavily on 2 things. Deferred gratification, which our brothers from India did, you know. And let's thank them and praise them for that. Deferred gratification and education along with the co-ops. You remember on Thursday, I made the point that we talk about Timbuktu and the grandeur of Africa. But what vaulted the Europeans into prominence and control of the resources of the world, Africa, India, China, and North America, was the use of 4 things. You remember I made a point. 1, to equip the ships with a 4.5 craft. The stern post rudder, the magnetic compass, and something that the Chinese used for entertainment, gunpowder.
But those things you mentioned before, the magnetic compass, the stern post rudder, where did they come from?
There are arguments about it. Some people said it was part of the Africans' equipment when they moved from Africa to trade with the Indians in South America. They used the balsam wood and some form of rudder to guide their ships. There is an argument about it, but the point is it was developed by the Spanish, the French, and lately by the British. Those four things. So when they followed the Northeast trade winds, they knew where they were going. And the magnetic compass helped them to know the north from the south with some degree of accuracy. And as I said, gunpowder, today you have all sorts of varieties of that, the atomic bomb, the hydrogen bomb, the drones these days. Soldiers aren't sent to the battlefront anymore. They're using more sophisticated development. And we have got to get into that game.
Yeah.
To be the victims of those who control that technology and apparatus. And that's the point I sought to make on Thursday. And the cooperatives must be a starting point for us to work together to mobilize our financial resources so we don't have to go begging other people for menial jobs.
Yeah. You know, you talked of deferred gratification. I remember my mother used to tell us at home, not everything copy your knack, you must present yourself. You know, I mean, when she was saying it, I could not understand much, but as I grew older, I understand. It's exactly what you are talking about, the deferred gratification. My brothers from Buxton had brought up the slogan, you must dance to your own music, if you remember back in 2012. Right? So we need to get away. We must only, there is no need for us to want to be seen out there every day with some fancy shirt, fancy pants, be at every fete, and the rest of it. Our young people must understand that there's a time to work and a time to play.
But
how will you assist us in bringing that message to them? How can you help us to get that sort of message to them?
It's a massive task. You've got to get our teachers understanding the import of that message, and within and without the classrooms, spread it to our children in school. And I repeat, the burden on young parents. We have parents who are 18, 19 years old, 20 years old, who themselves lack understanding, who themselves have not developed a sense of responsibility. We go to the churches sometimes, and the churches preach a theology, and one must be careful in discussing this matter, which leaves you in the realm of tomorrow. We need a theology which says, yes, if you do good, you go to heaven, and you have milk and honey. As a young athlete, I tried milk and honey and wasn't very happy. But you need to get all the pastors themselves to preach a theology, not only to Afro-Guyanese, but to Indo-Guyanese, others Guyanese, about the importance of translating the Bible, or the Quran for that matter, into meaningful pursuits, to develop a sense of pride among our people, and that we're proud to be who we are, and not want to be somebody else. Let me give an example of the amount of work we have to do. My mother, who did so much to make her son comfortable, but she was a hairdresser. What was hairdressing all about in those days? It was to press the kinky hair of the African woman to make it straight, because you were brainwashed in those days to believe that there was something better about the straight hair than the kinky and woolen hair we have. My father's drugstore, the big sale at weekends when people got paid, was Palmer's Skin Success and black and white bleach cream. Because black men and women thought there was something wrong with the melanin that God gave them. I gave you these two examples, which I didn't use on Thursday. And I was appalled when my wife and some friends told me, I couldn't believe it, that after all we did in the 60s, in the days when we talked about what independence must mean, that dark-skinned people are still bleaching their skins. I couldn't believe it, but apparently it is still happening.
It's still happening.
And
it is still happening, sad, you know. But we're talking about that identity. There is a bigger issue with this identity crisis that we're in that Sir Edward Brafitt gave us a very fitting example. He was called to an interview. Edward Brafitt, you know, the people who should have interviewed him passed him umpteen times. They're waiting for Edward Brafitt because they saw a black man sitting there they couldn't understand. How do we get over that problem?
By educating, by telling people to be proud of what you are, to say there's nothing wrong with a dark skin. Luckily today, a lot of our women in particular, and our men, are no longer pressing their hair. They're doing other things, but to make you proud of what God made you. And instead of spending money on those frivolities, spend it on books, educating, and improving your mind so that you can compete with what we consider the master class in Guyana and the world of which we are a part. And these programs must be used to transmit those messages, must be used, particularly among our young men, many who are very responsible. And our women are left to carry the burden of working to find food for children, and the men are running all over the place. At one time in the 70s, we started a program to talk to young men to be responsible. All of us have failed and faltered. And the time has come for us to identify our feelings and put it together so we can move into the next period as God's children and to benefit, as is the case of Guyana, from this bounty that God has given us. I don't think Guyanese recognize the blessings we have. No hurricanes, no monsoons, no flooding, no torrential rainfall, no natural disasters, but bountiful oil that belong to us, gold that belong to us. And we've got to work together to press a government to ensure that those treasures that the Creator has given us are not given to other people. Yes, if you have the technology to develop gold, diamonds, and harvest oil, you must get something for it. But at a big share, we must not be satisfied with our crumbs. And then we need to tell a government that is in place that we need to go back to the wisdom of the architects of this nation. And we can do it. The money is there now. Press for free education, quality education, from kindergarten to university, so that every boy and girl in Guyana, whether Afro, Indo, Chino, Mixo, Doglo, as my last daughter once said, whether you're Mixinese, you have an equal opportunity to use your talents to rise to the top. At the moment, we're not doing that. We're building schools and not paying teachers, building hospitals, and you want to bring in nurses and doctors from overseas. Misplaced priorities. And your movement must carry the struggle to get this government to their senses, to use this money we have sensibly. Free education. The trouble is, my friend, when you relay certain concepts and ideas, the master blaster appears on the horizon. And something says again, then we can't do what Bonham talks about. When he talked about defense in depth, he didn't have the money. Today, we have an Argyle agreement, and the old thesis, the old belief, you lose what you don't use. And if today or tomorrow the Venezuelans march over into Essequibo Coast, what are we going to do? Talk? Get somebody else to help us? Bonham's idea for defense in depth was that with the retooled national service, you use your university graduates, the secondary children of all races, to occupy all the lands along the border productively. In those days, we had all this gold. So if you harvested gold or producing plantain, cassava, legumes, vegetables to feed the world, I'm not talking about giving people 2 or 5 acres of land. We talked about giving groups 10, 20, and hundreds of acres of land so that they can build estates that you see in North America and elsewhere. This is what defense in depth proposed. But we didn't have the money, and those who had the power didn't like the idea because that would have meant true liberation. And so, my friend, those are the messages must now transmit to our people, difficult as it is, but we have to make a start. Your voice is gone, I'm not hearing you. Jen?
Yes, sorry about that. My
Okay.
microphone was off.
Yeah, your voice is gone.
I'm sorry I did not, I couldn't get it live on Facebook because I anticipated some colleagues, some people would have been there with questions for you. But I still have one question. I know President Biden just left office. And one of the things he did before leaving office was to pardon Marcus Garvey of the crimes, quote unquote, that he was supposed to have committed just about 100 years ago, just over 100 years ago, 1920s, 1925. Finally, he was judged as to be a criminal for money laundering. Well, they didn't call it money laundering, then some money, post office money. I can't remember the exact phrase
They call it mail fraud.
Mail fraud, yes. Right? And because he was trying to sell stocks or shares of the Black Star liner. And so now Biden has pardoned him. What impact do you think that will have on the Black diaspora, the African Americans, African Guyanese, Africans in general?
But first of all, we need to thank Biden for his bold step. It's long overdue. And to answer your question, again, it's a big task. You speak to some young Afro-Americans, Afro-Guyanese, Afro-Jamaicans, Afro-Barbadians. They have a faint idea of the grandeur and magnificence of Marcus Garvey. And therefore, it has to begin. And I think work has started to tell people the visionary this man was. There's an interesting song by Bob Marley, Emancipate Your Minds, Redemption Song.
Redemption Song.
Taken from one of the speeches by Marcus Garvey. So that we have to connect with the vision Marcus Garvey.
Well, there have been...
And that's the task we all must embark on now that he has been freed of this burden that has been his shoulder for so many years.
You know,
and you know what people realize? Marcus Garvey was so great. He entertained and had discussions with the Ku Klux Klan, established in 1865 at the end of the Civil War, when the Deep South still felt that there was no place of equality for the Blacks. And so the Ku Klux Klan was formed in 1865.
Yeah.
And Garvey had the courage to talk with them. And that is what we must do. Speak to those who hate us, those who feel we have no place in the world, and convince them that we are all God's children. And even though they go to church in their white churches, deep down, they don't think that those people of color have a place of honor in this world of which we are a part. So that to answer your question, yes, must thank President Biden for this great effort. The time has come He was Jamaican, and his grandchildren have thanked Biden and those who have been for years struggling to clean the slate of his name.
Yes, earlier I was intimating the fact that your name is Hamilton Greene. My name is Elton McCrae. What impact, because I use the example of E.R. Braffett, no, but you didn't follow me there, to say, as Black African peoples in this world, we present ourselves to others with these names. It is, in my mind, saying to them that we are not we are not equal to them, because the Chinese man will always be Su Ping, the Indian man will always be Singh, but you, Hamilton Greene, me, Elton McCrae. When you hear those names, you look for some Scotsman, you look for some Englishman, as happened to E.R. Braffett. No, they were not expecting a Black Guyanese, an Afro-Guyanese to be there waiting for that interview. How do we, in future, roll with such a load on our heads?
Well, first of all, every Hamilton Greene, George Brown, Michael, whatever, must understand that labels are important and that the truth of our history, as I said before, makes it crystal clear that we, the Africans, are the only group that were completely severed from the roots. And when you sever a tree from its roots, it's difficult, but not impossible, for it to grow and flourish. I say difficult, but not impossible. And that's the task we must give ourselves and explain that to people. There are many examples I can give. Because we had no choice. And in fact, some people with pride, up until recently, carried these Anglo-Saxon names, thinking that they were better than the Singhs and the Prasads and the Libarases and the Supings. That is the tragedy of our history. And this is what we need to speak about openly and fearlessly. And when people talk about reparation, that is what we must talk about. We are the people who dug all those canals, as I said earlier.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a serious matter. But some have changed their names. I have relatives who've changed their names. I've given all my children African names and Islamic names. But that is only the surface. They still carry the title name of Greene. But we have to go beyond that. Understand that this is part of a legacy. And we don't have to hate the Englishmen, the Dutch, and the British. But we have to ensure that we get more out of their exploits and our exploits. And that we are entitled to a bigger share of this cake. And that we must prepare our children come out of darkness into light.
Repair.
There are many amusing. Braffett's story is interesting. But on a lighter note, an Englishman who warmed to Fox Burner was appointed to do some work in the sugar industry in London. Those old people remain. David Arthur Blackman. So shortly after independence, he arrives at Heathrow, and the chap is shouting, "David, a black man." So, we just got independence, and the messenger, whatever he was, looking for a black man.
Yes.
So after a while, David recognized David A. Blackman. That must be he. So he goes up to the chap and tap on the shoulder. He says, "Who you come to meet?" He says, "David, a black man." So David says, "No, I'm David A. Blackman." Another joke for many years.
Funny one.
Okay. Pointed that throughout history, including slavery, there have always been Caucasians who understood that we were human beings and they needed to be on our side. And that Powell Buxton and the others who fought against slavery must be honored from time to time.
I think we have been honoring them, because we have the community of Buxton, we have the church in Queenstown, Clarkson. I think it's called the Congregational Church, Clarkson Memorial. We have honored them. So we are not gonna deny them that. But the thing is, you mentioned repair. That repair issue we need to deal with in a greater detail, because even here in Guyana, we need repairs from the present government, because coming through the whole process of enslavement, colonization, we have always been holding the wrong or given the wrong end of the stick. And for that, we need to be recompensed. I hope that in a very short time, the members or the reparations committee shall be dealing with this issue. So we need to educate our people why this issue must be dealt with. So in future, another program I will deal with that. But for now, Comrade Prime Minister Greene, I must thank you very much for this evening, and thank your wife for allowing you to be here, spending this time with me when you should be with her. But it's all for the better good, for the greater good.
But she has helped me set up this whole thing. So
yes, you have to do that. I recognize that. I was
Before you go, let me share another anecdote with her part of the family. As you know, her father is Indo-Guyanese, and she's Basdio.
Yes.
So when her brother, I think, got to Queen's College, the teacher then had difficulty understanding who was a black boy named Basdio. So he didn't argue. He said, "My name is Brown." Thank you very much.
Okay then, thank you very much, Comrade.
Keep Greene. Alluded, the struggle has just started.
Yes, I know. Bye.
Gone. Them a the first one out on the dam. Basket on she head, bucket in each hand. Hold up on she frack, I wanna she grandson. To the market, them a go. For the morning, the day is dawning. For Kakakro to give the villagers a warning. Rise and shine, the bird birds them a sing, all animal take turn as them join in the waking. Cock a crow, dog a bark, donkey bray, horse and they even duck a quack. Cock a crow, dog a bark, donkey bray, horse and they even duck a quack. Come and hear this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country.